So this is a story from when I was very young. It was a few years after I was born, so I don't remember a whole lot, only bits and pieces. I'd say that I was 5 or 6 years old. My parents filled in the gaps for me, so I'm going to tell the whole version of the story, both my parts and theirs. We were living in an old farmhouse at the time. My parents were poor, so they rented from a landlord that owned a few small properties in the area. My dad worked in the steel mill on the midnight shift, so he'd worked some odd hours. This is relevant because it might be the only reason that we are still alive and that I'm also able to write this story. Next thing I know, I hear a loud crashing sound and someone screaming for help, saying that someone's going to kill them. We jolted out of bed and we were fully awake in an instant. I was sleeping in bed with my parents at the time because I had been having awful night terrors. My dad, who had just been switched from the midnight shift to days, jumped out of bed and cautiously made his way down the stairs, grabbing a stocking pick from the fireplace in the living room. He got to the door when he heard it again. "Help! Oh my God, he's coming!" The woman's voice on the other side of the door began sobbing hysterically. "We have to help her. Open the door," said my mother. Mom is an inherently good woman who always goes out of her way to help people every single day of her life. She reached for the deadbolt, but my dad stopped her. He shot her a look and said cautiously through the door, "What's going on? Who's after you, and where is he?" The voice through the door responded, "I just need to get in before he gets here. Please, please." More crying. My father turned on the porch light and said, "Stay up on the porch with your back against the door." He then opened the deadbolt, but not the chain lock. He slipped a brick that we use as a door stop through the crack. "Take this and use it to defend yourself if you need it. I'll be right on the other side of this door, and if he comes after you, I'll come out and help. In the meantime, I'm calling the police. They'll be here soon." This is when the woman started to absolutely lose her mind. She began slamming her whole body into the door with a mindless fury. "What the heck is wrong with you? Let me in this goddamn house right now. What kind of people are you?" My dad forced the door shut and locked the deadbolt again. He immediately called the police, and they came within 10 minutes. When they arrived, the woman was simply gone. The doorstop brick was sitting on one of the porch steps. My parents gave a description of the events and the woman as best they could. We tried our best to get to sleep in the following nights. But Mom and Dad checked all of the locks and windows several times throughout the night. I don't remember understanding what happened, but I remember thinking that my parents were acting strange and wondering why they didn't help this woman. I thought that the man snuck up and got her while we were calling the police. A few days later, we found out that the police had been called for a similar situation. My dad's brother-in-law worked in law enforcement and had told us that this time. The police happened to have a car down the street and arrived without lights and sirens. The officers saw the woman that my parents had described at the door, on top of the porch. When they began walking, a man dashed out of the bushes from the side of the porch. They chased him down pretty quickly and recovered a long kitchen knife from the bushes where he had been hiding. The man and the woman had been working together to try to gain entry to houses. The police surmised that the woman would get people to open the door and let her in, and then let her partner in. God only knows what he would have done once he got inside. Once I heard this story and put it together with my memories of the event, it sent chills down my spine. Eventually, what would have happened if my dad had been working the midnight shift, or if he had been asleep? He grew up in a very bad neighborhood, Gary, Indiana, so he was always overly cautious about people around him. Usually, it was mildly irritating, but this time, it may have saved our lives. My coworker, whom I will call Jane, is a 33-year-old virgin and a very devout Christian. Her family is very strict and very religious. I'm not bashing on their religion in any way. I was raised a Christian myself. These people, though, they just seem to take their beliefs to a new extreme. Think of them as the Flanders from The Simpsons. I mentioned that Jane is a virgin because she has honestly never even had a boyfriend before. She's been on a few dating websites as of late, but she's usually very strict when it comes to the types of guys she would date. She can be kind of stuck up, which has gained her very little popularity. She recently met a guy on OkCupid. Let's call him Miguel. Miguel claims to live in a bigger city than ours, an hour away. We are in the middle of nowhere in Kansas, and that he is 35 years old, also claims to be a virgin, and takes an interest in Jane. They chat for a while, and she's very excited. Once they establish a fondness for each other, he claims that he has $250K in savings and a job at Cessna that pays $65 an hour. He has a nice apartment and 2 cars, one of which is a '69 Dodge Charger. Sounds too good to be true, right? We all agree, everyone but her. They agree to meet for a first date, and he says he'll drive down there to see her. While driving down there, he claims to have gotten into an accident on the interstate and was left hospitalized. Jane is devastated. The rest of us, who she was telling this to, all just assumed that he was lying to her, and this was his way of getting out of the date and her finding out that he was scum. We didn't think there'd be any more communication afterwards. We were wrong. They continued talking, and shortly after getting out of the hospital, he claimed that he was hit by a crossing car on the street. His life apparently took a turn for the worst, as he claimed he was laid off from Cessna. His apartment was burglarized, and all of his money and his other car were seized by the IRS due to a misunderstanding in his taxes from years back. Completely believable stories, right? Much to our dismay, Jane decides she doesn't care about these things, and she is willing to continue talking to the man. He soon starts calling her daily and coming over once a week to visit her at work. At this point, we get to meet this guy, and he comes off as your typical loser with a beer belly who lays around on the couch all day, yelling at his woman to bring him a beer. Despite all the money he claims to have, he wears clothes that are way too big for him, usually sweatpants and flip-flops. This earned him the nickname Flip-Flops amongst us at work. He has problems making eye contact with people when he talks to them and has the creepiest smile. We know right away that he doesn't seem very trustworthy. 3 weeks into their relationship, he shows up at our work and proposes to Jane. She gladly agrees, as we all shake our heads in disbelief. He tells us he got a new job working for Microsoft down in his city. We did our research. There are no Microsoft jobs over there, unless you're working and selling products at Best Buy. And he tells her that he's now seeing a therapist for his anger and jealousy issues. Many red flags are going off in our heads at this point, but Jane doesn't seem to mind any of it. He moves down here to be with her after claiming that his family disowned him for wanting to marry a Christian. He claims they're all devout Catholics, and that's the reason why she'll never get to meet them. As if this isn't ridiculous and over the top enough, things start to get creepier from here. He tells us that he had a new job for $25 an hour as the head engineer at Exide Manufacturing. The head of HR at Exide is actually a relative of a friend of ours, so we asked her about this. They never heard of this man, and the position he claims he has doesn't exist. We try to tell Jane about it, but she brushes off all of our comments and claims that we were thinking too much about it or we're just jealous. He starts picking her up and dropping her off from work every single day, as well as picking her up for all of her lunches. She still believes he has a full-time job and that he's only doing this because of how much he loves her. We start to feel that he's just wanting to know where she is at all times. He asked the maintenance man at our work, after their first meeting, to be the best man at his wedding. This also doesn't strike Jane as odd because apparently Miguel is just untrusting of most people and has no friends of his own. They all want him for his money. Her parents loaned him their spare van, so he can use that to drive from now on. To our shock, her parents are already buying baby clothes and supplies for the couple. They're completely won over by the man. I think they're just blindfolded by the fact that their daughter finally has someone and will give them grandkids, which is a really sad thought. By this point, we've noticed her personality growing slightly more stressed and depressed as time goes on. Now, if you're still here, you're probably thinking, oh, she's just another dumb girl who picked up a sleazeball guy who's milking her for all she's worth. And you're definitely not wrong. We all thought the same thing. Until one day, she dropped this little bomb on us. He has just recently told her that he used to be spec ops in the military, the Air Force to be exact, and they've decided that they want him to work for them again. They'll pay him $75,000 for working 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. The story always changes, something she doesn't find suspicious at all. Testing military equipment that's too dangerous and could be life-threatening. He agrees to the work, and we think he's copping out of the relationship. She then tells us that if she wishes to remain in contact with him, they'll have to get married as soon as possible, and she'll have to be prepared to move away with him. She explains that the military has been calling her and making stops at the house to explain to her that she'll have to marry him immediately, and she needs to be prepared to move to an undisclosed location at any given moment. From that location, she'll not be allowed to make any contact with friends or family, since all that is going on is top secret, and she has to prove that she can be trusted. Obviously, all of us are now alarmed. Everyone but her, and her family. They are delighted that she's with a military man, and are proud that she gets to be part of something much bigger. The rest of us, sane people, are trying to figure out what on earth he can be plotting. Is she going to be hijacked into human trafficking? Is he going to murder her? One of our co-workers had just called the human trafficking hotline, and they think that this definitely sounds like something they've seen before. Unfortunately, they can't do anything about it until he actually makes a move and takes her. We're looking into contacting our local police to see if there's anything that can be done about this before she gets the phone call that tells her when they have to make their move. This is all so crazy. We don't know what to expect or just what danger she's really in. This all happened very recently. I'm a young woman who works late nights at a bar in a city, but I live in a rural area outside of town. It was a very slow night, so we closed early and one of the bouncers walked me to my car. I didn't particularly notice anyone following me while I was on the main roads, just a normal sprinkling of cars. I first noticed them when they turned onto one of the super small roads that lead toward the area where I live. It was strange because people rarely pull off onto that road at the same time as me, as it isn't very populated. But as soon as we were on the winding and unlit road, they began to behave strangely. They'd flash their brights at me, then ride my ass until they were practically scraping my bumper, then pull back really far. I tried speeding up and slowing down, but that didn't seem to matter. When we came to the first intersection, they turned on their signal to go right, but when I went straight, I watched them in my mirror turn the nose of their car to the right, pause for a few seconds, and then follow me straight. This continued for a while. At the next intersection, I signaled left and waited until they did too, and then quickly turned right, and of course they followed. I then called the cops and told them I was headed towards a gas station I knew to be open and was the only place remotely nearby that might have people at it, since almost nothing is 24 hours right now. They said they dispatched police to meet me there, and I tried to focus on driving slowly so I didn't beat them there. When I got to the gas station, I pulled into the little turn lane, which made the car pause, and then quickly stepped on the gas and squealed around the corner. I only really had time to glimpse the general look of the car and the driver's face. They were alone and very strange looking. They were incredibly pale, like albino pale, with short equally pale hair. They were completely androgynous, at least from what I could see, and they stared at me for a second before bolting away. The police took like 20 minutes to arrive after that. Typical, so I just sat in front of the gas station and watched the road for cars with my doors locked. The police said there wasn't anything they could do. My original assumption was that it was a patron from work, but we'd had so few customers, I feel like I would have recognized them. I don't even know why they would have followed me the full hour, only to begin making themselves really obvious. When I was in elementary school, I was friends with a girl named Jessica. We had a group of 5 or 6 girls that we always played with. Jessica's parents were divorced, and I often went over to her dad's house after school because they had a trampoline and a slide. Her dad was a totally normal dude. His name was Richard, and he held a job as a pilot, which is definitely a job that requires mental stability. Jessica came over to my house as well, and her dad would always come pick her up after the play date, so he was familiar with where I lived. In, I think, 2nd or 3rd grade, Jessica moved away to live with her mom. I didn't fully understand what was going on as a child, and I still don't know what happened, but something had gone wrong with her father. We didn't hear much from Jessica, but around her birthday the following year, Richard invited our group of girls over for a surprise birthday party. We arrived at the party and were waiting for Jessica so we could surprise her, but Jessica never showed up. We were just hanging out with her dad for a while. As a child, this didn't seem as weird as it does to me now. When our parents picked us up, we obviously told them what happened, and we didn't hang out with Jessica or Richard again. After that, some of the girls started receiving presents from Richard at their homes. I never received them, but my mother told me about it years later. The presents usually consisted of cheap jewelry and notes. I have no idea what the notes said, but I'm not sure that I want to. After this, Richard goes away. My mom later tells me he was in a mental institution. Years go by. I completely forgot about the whole situation. Then, in winter of 2013, I was out of town for a cheer competition. I was scrolling through Facebook one night when all of a sudden a new group chat popped up with 5 girls from my elementary school. I had not kept in touch with any of them, so this was weird. The chat was about how they had received messages from Richard on Facebook. I checked the other folder of my Facebook messages, and sure enough, I had some too. I had a variety of messages that didn't make a lot of sense, including some strange poems. Many of the messages were descriptions of dreams he had about me. Though some of them were nonsense, others were understandable enough to come across as sexually violently threatening. I don't feel comfortable sharing some of the more explicit messages, but Here are a couple of the shorter and less scary ones. Hi, little girl from not long ago. Pristine of pristineness, I want you. We're going to have planets to go to someday, provided you don't melt them first. I'm so proud of you. Stay happy, and I haven't found a way to keep you off my mind. I can't see the planets, till I make you all mine. You're just so rough, and oh so fine. As if I'm there, my love for you I share. It's so indefinite, for it's all about you, that I only care. Oh my goodness, you're all my whipping cream containers. I clicked on Richard's Facebook profile, and his whole profile was dedicated to us 5 girls. He didn't have any friends added, so clearly nobody had seen it. Unfortunately, we didn't have very good security settings on Facebook. He had saved dozens of photos of us and then reposted them with nonsensical and inappropriate captions. The captions ranged from essays about his love for us to a one-sentence caption that simply said, "She is so ugly." Here are some of the shorter photo captions. Sierra, because my initial euphoria turns into sunken depression when I realize that there is nothing I can do about anything besides you, because you're inside me and I can't get you out of my mind. I love you so much. Melissa, can I paint your picture? I want to lift you around to see how heavy you are, and we'll go for a drive on Hollywood Drive with the windows rolled down so we can get a crystal clear view. Fucking give it up, like as if I'm going to pretend I like it. Besides, you're just yanking on my strings, because time after time, it's always the same common denominator, which I noticed. How come you all pluck your eyebrows? But I do pretend I have favorite things, but in reality I don't need them, and I'm a good liar because I have a criminal mind like yours. We were all freshly 18 at the time and didn't know what to do, so our moms contacted the RCMP. They told us not to block Richard on Facebook, but not to reply, as the messages could be used as evidence. He continued to send us messages every single day, and we shared the screenshots with each other in the group chat and sent them off to the RCMP. He had several different Facebook accounts that were all variations of his name, along with one randomly named Esteban. One of the girls got in touch with Jessica to find out if she still had contact with her father. She only saw him on supervised visits every once in a while. She was very embarrassed and apologized a lot. She was a super sweet girl, and obviously none of us were upset at her in any way. Eventually, Richard was charged with 5 counts of criminal harassment. He pleaded guilty and went to jail for around 5 months. When he got out, there was still a no contact order in place, meaning that he could not contact any of us girls or come within a certain radius of our homes. He was not allowed to use the internet either. I'm not sure how all of this works, but this is what the constable handling the case told me. However, not surprisingly, he started contacting us on Facebook again. He went back to jail for breaching his probation. It was the summer of 2015, and he got out again. I started receiving more messages. I immediately wrote on the group chat to see if the other girls had gotten anything. They hadn't. It was just me. I immediately contacted the police. It seems they had forgotten to include my name on the no contact order. He knew not to contact the other girls, but thought it was still safe for him to contact me. This time, things got worse. I had just started working at a new job, and being the idiot that I am, I had my workplace public on my Facebook profile. One day, I came into work, and there was a package waiting for me. I was obviously confused because I would never order something to be delivered to my work. I opened it up with my managers, and there was weed inside it, along with a disc with my encryption software on it. He had mailed me weed to my work. I knew immediately that this was him and awkwardly explained the situation to my managers, who thought it was hilarious. The security in my office tower was alerted and given a photo of him. They began walking me to my bus stop after my shifts. It was scary knowing that he knew where I worked. At this point, I hadn't seen Richard in years, but it was clear that he was mentally unwell. I had absolutely no idea what he was capable of or what his motives were. The RCMP did not seem to take this case very seriously, and they moved very slowly, passing the case around to various officers. Meanwhile, I was terrified. I could hardly walk down my street at night without freaking out. Every time someone knocked on my door while I was home alone, I would drop whatever I was doing and hide under the kitchen counters. I had not moved since I was a child, so it was very possible that he remembered where I lived. The packages kept coming. I received more weed in several different forms, including cookies, what appeared to be cocaine, and a key to his apartment, along with some miscellaneous items. I opened all the packages at the police station. One of the packages included a USB stick with a bunch of audio recordings on it, but I decided it was better for me not to listen to them. The return address on the packages was to a random P.O. box in another city that did not belong to Richard, and no fingerprints were found on the packages. During all of this, the Facebook messages remained constant. Luckily, in one of the messages, he informed me that he had sent me drugs and the key along with his home address. This confirmed that the packages were from him. He was charged again. I received a subpoena in the mail to appear as a witness in court. However, he once again pleaded guilty and I never got to go to court. I was actually a bit disappointed, as I thought seeing him in person would provide me with some sort of closure. He is still locked up somewhere as I'm writing this, but I still get scared walking at night or when someone knocks on the door. The police provided me zero information on where he was being held or when he would be released. I feel like I am just waiting for the day that he will contact me again. It seems as if every time I think it's over, it isn't. If I do hear from him again, I'll be sure to post an update. The situation could have been a lot worse. As far as I know, he did not physically follow me around or anything. I strongly encourage you all to make sure your Facebook privacy settings are as private as possible.